People describe a product as Apple-like if it's minimalistic, really expensive, a bit behind on raw specs, and missing a bunch of industry standard features. As someone with a more nuanced opinion of Apple, I think it goes a bit deeper. I describe something as Apple-like if it knows what it's good at, does that to the best of its ability, and does absolutely nothing else. Whichever opinion you have, the Sigma BF certainly ticks all the boxes. It's a work of art as much as it is a piece of equipment, and in that sense, it is classic Apple product design. The Sigma BF is a full-frame camera, meaning its sensor is 36mm by 24mm, the exact same size as a full frame of 35mm film, with an aspect ratio of 3:2. This bigger sensor means it's better at capturing light and pixels are sharper. It's mirrorless, so the body is somewhat compact, but you're definitely not fitting this in a pocket because it requires an attachable lens. The look and feel of the camera is what captured the attention of Apple fans. It looks like it was designed by Johnny Ive with its solid aluminum unibody. Milled from a single block of metal, you can count the number of seams with your fingers, even if you only have 3 fingers. One half of the front is textured with a diamond pattern for grip. A few different surfaces are brushed rather than sandblasted, with beveled edges around the buttons to break up the look. There are 3 affordances for ergonomics. A notch taken out of the bottom right corner for your palm, a thumb scoop to help your grip, and sides that are slightly tapered in. The front is flat, there's no protrusion to wrap your other fingers around, but it's still comfortable to hold. The full package is a touch heavy for one hand, so I brace it underneath with my left hand for control of the aperture and focus, too. The build quality, as you may expect, is absolutely immaculate. The tactile feeling of the buttons, the aperture, the focus, the automatic manual switch are all solid and clicky. Notches on all the moving parts and dials line up perfectly every time. Nothing wobbles, nothing is cheap plastic. Even though I have absolutely no reason to detach and reattach the lens, because it's the only one I was sent, and even though I struggled to put it on the first time, live on our podcast, I find myself taking it off and putting it back on all the time, simply because it feels so mechanical, so tactile, and so satisfying to click together. The release button is springy when you hold it down. The lens snaps into place with a weight that tells you it's secure. After just 2 weeks with the Sigma BF, every other camera looks like a labyrinthian puzzle box of inscrutable knobs and pointless buttons. Say what you will about the staunch minimalism and expensive CNC milled design, every other camera should at least work like this. Now, Sigma didn't send me a manual, but the controls, both physical and on-screen, are intuitive enough for me to figure out naturally. The dot button on the bottom turns the camera on and off. The play button switches between capturing and playback. You can hold your finger on the button without clicking it to get an instant preview of the last photo you took. The ellipses button adjusts interface settings like grid lines, volume, brightness, and on-screen displays. The dial spins around like an iPod click wheel, clicks in all 4 directions, and clicks in as a button. This adjusts your shooting settings. You can set the dial to have easy access to adjusting exposure, ISO, shutter speed, digital zoom, and more. The screen itself is also a touchscreen, so you can tap it to change focus. Unfortunately, some of the on-screen controls are tappable, but not all of them, which is a little confusing. Regardless, the on-screen UI is incredibly intuitive and largely stays out of your way. A secondary status display shows extra information relevant to the context. It shows exposure in shooting mode, battery percentage while you're charging, the number of items in playback mode, and more. Usually, whatever it's showing is what changes when you spin the dial. Besides the power button and shutter button, the other 3 buttons are pressure sensitive and solid state with haptic feedback. Now, Let me just say, before you get worried, they are incredibly well done. They feel exactly like real buttons, but they should be more reliable over time. Now, you also might be worried that solid-state buttons mean they won't work if you have gloves on, but that's not true. They're pressure sensitive, not capacitive like your smartphone. So they worked with everything I tested it with. Gloves, a thick blanket, even a completely non-conductive piece of plastic. The picture quality is phenomenal. 24 megapixels isn't the highest resolution for a full-frame camera. Other cameras go to 40 megapixels, but the trade-off is that the pictures are incredibly sharp and low-light performance is fantastic. The Sigma BF uses L-mount lenses, which are manufactured by Sigma, Leica, Panasonic, and Samyang. They sent me the recommended 50mm prime lens. Now, prime lenses don't zoom in or out, but the 50mm focal length is a sweet spot for natural photography, portraits, and landscapes, although it's much too close for taking selfies. And the minimum focus distance, which is how close you can get before things start to get blurry, is a rather long 18 inches. The full-frame sensor means its performance in the dark is not only far and away superior to every smartphone, it doesn't need to use any computational photography to take amazing pictures. Now, my house has terrible lighting. It's pretty shaded, a lot of rooms are pretty dark through most hours of the day, and most rooms only have 1 or 0 lights. I can take pictures in the late evening with virtually no grain that would only be possible at peak daylight hours on my iPhone. On the downside, it doesn't support HDR or high dynamic range, so indoor daytime pictures shot against a window are going to have the background blown out. While the full-frame sensor is great at capturing light, the lack of any computational photography means you have to consider the dynamic range when you're framing a shot, whereas Apple aggressively processes images so that you never have to think about it. Importing photos, just like any other camera, is incredibly easy. You just plug it into your Mac, and the Photos app will let you import everything that's new. Now, its RAW photos take up roughly 3 times the space as JPEGs. You can shoot in a combined RAW and JPEG, and the Apple Photos will import both as one combined image. It's easy to switch from JPEG to RAW and use the built-in editing interface to fine-tune the image. Unfortunately for those photos where the JPEG is good enough and you'd rather save space, there's still no way in the Photos app to throw away the RAW part of a JPEG RAW image, but that's on Apple, not Sigma. The Sigma BF is a photography camera first and foremost. The video is impressive, but you'll only want to use it on a tripod. This is not an action camera, nor a vlogging camera. The first clue is that there's no top-level button to switch between photo and video. Video is a mode in a menu that takes 5 button clicks to activate. It can capture 4K and even 6K video up to 30 FPS, or 1080p video up to 120 FPS. The continuous autofocus works pretty well. It can automatically and pretty reliably detect humans, dogs, and cats. But it struggles to track fast-moving objects. That's one advantage of the iPhone, as the Pro models have a LiDAR sensor. There's no optical nor sensor shift image stabilization, only digital. I shot some handheld video with the camera mounted in the Moment Filmmaker cage, and even with added grips on the side, the video was a little too shaky for comfort. But shooting in 6K gives you the wiggle room to stabilize it in Final Cut Pro in post without sacrificing resolution. The 2 built-in microphones are okay, but without any way of mounting a windscreen, their utility is somewhat limited. The fixed display and 50mm prime lens are 2 more clues that this is a camera you set up and stand behind, not hold in front of you. In pursuit of its radically simple design, the Sigma BF sacrifices many traditional camera elements. That's right, the screen doesn't flip out and the camera doesn't have an optical viewfinder. The display is bright enough for me to see on a clear and sunny day, but you might struggle if your eyes aren't as good as mine, or if you live in a sunnier place than Ohio. There's no cold shoe mount for attaching a camera flash or microphone. If those are must-haves, you'll need to mount it in some sort of cage that adds those back. There's no SD card slot. You take pictures and videos on the built-in 230GB internal storage, and that's it. I appreciate the simplicity. I don't have to worry about swapping and formatting cards through a clunky interface. But if you're shooting a day-long event, it's possible you'll run into the internal storage limits. While it has a standard tripod mount on the bottom, there's only a single attachment for a camera strap on the right, not the left or the bottom, limiting the types of straps you can use. It doesn't tag your photos with location data, so you'll have to do that by hand if you care about such things. The speakers aren't very loud, but again, this isn't really a video camera, so it's fine. The battery life is a little unimpressive. I found it drained kind of quickly while shooting. The focus and aperture dials, much like the shifter in a modern automatic car, are a blend of physical and digital. They're not directly mechanically linked to anything. In automatic mode, you can spin them all you want, and the camera will just ignore it. In manual mode, there's a slight latency. As smartphone cameras get better and more capable every year, full-size dedicated cameras need to lean into what differentiates them to stay relevant. As Steve Jobs put it himself, if a product category isn't markedly better at anything, then it has no reason for being. The Sigma BF is a camera distilled to the joy of photography. Other cameras overcorrect on physical controls until you're swimming in dials and buttons. Learning how to use them all feels like studying for the SAT. The Sigma BF gives you everything you need to have fun taking beautiful photos. Every dial and button is there to help you take pictures and feel good doing it, and there's nothing else. Other smartphones are more convenient. Other cameras are more advanced. But the Sigma BF is truly one of a kind. I'm D. Griffin Jones with Cult of Mac.